Well, happy Friday, the Schlock, everybody. We are talking about Friday the 13th, part 2. I am Darby Ellis Lewis Wilson. This is Chris Anonymous. The reason I say Friday the Schlock instead of the 13th is because if you're watching this live, which is right now, it is not actually Friday the 13th. That is this coming Friday. So you might be seeing this in the future from now. Chris, what's up, man? Do you have any Friday the 13th plans?
Probably watching some scary movies. That's what I usually like to do on Friday the 13th.
That actually really surprises me.
Right? What?
I've heard from the grapevine that you are a Swiftie, a Taylor Swift fan.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe she has a big concert on Friday. Friday the 13th is like a big deal,
right?
In the Taylor Swift world. I was driving Liv to school the other day, and she is going to this Friday the 13th Taylor Swift concert, and apparently, I guess it's her birthday or something. I don't know, like that Taylor Swift's birthday. I asked Liv, like, why is 13 so important, or why is Friday the 13th so important to Taylor Swift? And she said, I don't know. I think it's because of the movie. And I was like, well, do you know why the title Friday the 13th is important for the movie? And she said, no. And I said, well, actually, I guess I don't know either. And that was my, I think that was my ultimate answer. It's unlucky, right? It's supposed to be an unlucky day.
Well, some cultures, many cultures believe it to be unlucky, but several cultures also to believe it to be a lucky day. So the unlucky usually gets the bigger picture, bigger piece of the pie. But yeah, some cultures believe it to be a lucky day too.
Well, for these movies, I believe it's probably an unlucky day. For us, it's a lucky day because we get to go back into one of my favorite series and one of my favorite horror genres. So we are talking about part 2. We've decided we're going to do one of these in order every single Friday the 13th. Last Friday the 13th, we covered part 1 with Mrs. Voorhees being the killer. And now we are into part 2 where Jason he's on the scene, everybody.
Right. Yeah.
And we're going to see a very different Jason than what we have normally seen. They haven't really had the character down yet. They didn't really know where they were going with him yet. And so there are many actors, I believe, that played Jason. I believe in the opening shots where it's just his feet. I think that was like a female costume designer or something like that.
Yep.
So we get like a lot of different actors coming together to create this iconic character. That's all I really have for an intro. Chris, do you have anything else you want to say before we start moving on?
No. I mean, it's really fun to be exploring these every Friday the 13th. I think the last one we did was in January. So, just be on the lookout. Anytime you see a Friday the 13th on your calendar, know that we will be doing a show around there in order. And there are a lot of movies to get through. So this will be a little bit of a journey.
We love themed shows. So the way this show works is we like to talk about the good, the bad, and the schlock. What we like, what we didn't like about these movies. What are some of the big ideas or preponderances for these films? We will definitely spoil this movie. We will spoil the one before it, the one after it. We're going to spoil everything.
I mean,
so
this movie spoils the one before it. So it's not even on us.
Yeah. And let's see. Before we get into all of that, we like to see who these people are, where they've come from, and where they're going in a little segment called Web of Schlock. So, Chris.
Yeah, this is going to be a short one. I mean, lots of people to look up, and lots of bit parts here and there. Let's go with the final girls. We got Amy Still, who played Ginny in this, and then
Mhm.
she was also in April Fool's Day.
Okay. I've
And
never
then,
seen that
yep, then we have Adrienne King, who was the final girl from the previous film,
one. Alice.
and who was very unlucky in this film and dies in the opening. Um, she is one of those kind of final girls where she took a 30-year break from acting and then got back into it and has been doing lots of indie horror movies, some of the fan
Oh, really?
films for Crystal Lake and different Friday the 13th fan
Okay.
films and other horror movies. But yeah, it's really interesting.
Apparently, she had a stalker, and I think that's what kind of put her off from doing more movies.
Yep, yep. The credited screenwriter Ron Kurz, he had a couple credits before this and after it, but mainly he's just been getting character credit on everything that came after this. And then we have the director Steve Miner, who we've seen on the show before. He directed House,
Okay.
and we'll see him again next Friday the 13th because he's also directed Part 3. He also directed Halloween H2O, Lake Placid. So he's kind of a little schlock royalty going on.
So he's in there.
Oh yeah,
He's in it deep.
he's in it deep. We've seen him, very enjoyable, and we'll see him again. And that's really about it. There are a lot of actors who just had little bit parts here and there, and if there's one you like, do the deep dive, go down the rabbit hole, and find out all the weird stuff they've been in. But just a lot of small credits.
But we don't have any Kevin Bacons in this one.
No, that's the interesting thing is like what films have up and coming superstars and which ones don't, and it's lots of these 80s horror movies have them and lots don't. It's kind of it's like a Cracker Jack box, and sometimes you get a prize and sometimes you don't.
Well, before we move on to good, this is a new fancy feature of being on StreamYard. Lance the Obscure Movie Guy is in the chat. He's loving the new graphics. So thanks a lot for watching, man. And we will see you next week. So there's a little spoiler for the end of the show. Lance the Obscure Movie Guy is going to be on, and we're going to be talking about a movie I will tell you at the end of the show. So good and the bad. I believe you took that last week, so I'm going to jump in.
You're rolling with it.
Man, I really like this movie. I'm gonna tell you that I don't have a whole lot of bad for it, so I'm probably gonna let you go on that one. But the music. I knew that you were going to jump onto that at some point, but the music is really stellar in this. I haven't watched all these movies in order in a very long time, so I don't remember exactly what the music evolves into, but I'm pretty sure that these first few films they really embrace that thriller type.
Yeah, I mean, Harry
soundtrack.
Manfrendi is just a unsung hero in composing for movies, especially horror movies. He did the original one. He did House. He's a great composer, and the music, you're right, is amazing.
Like we have during the skinny dipping scene, we have some homages to Jaws. We got that dun 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 dun. Again, we have the psycho slashes, but also while I was watching it, I just had this vision in my mind of like a Bugs Bunny cartoon, because the way the music goes is just it reminds me of when like Bugs Bunny is being chased by the bull, right? He runs across and it's all high, and then the bull boom, 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 comes in. So maybe that's not the effect that they were trying to get, the affect they were trying to get out of me, but man, I sure enjoyed it. Like it made the movie like pretty fun for me. Let's see. We get I'd like to talk about it a little bit more later, but we get a vulnerable Jason in this. We see that he's like afraid of a chainsaw. Like they're getting at him with the chainsaw. He like actually like recoils back, afraid that he could potentially die. Of course, they hack him through the side through his collarbone with the machete, which, I mean, we know that can't keep him down. But at this point in time, before we have Jason as a fully established character, we could very well believe that this did it. He's done for, because we see him vulnerable in earlier spots. We see him get kicked in the nuts, and he's like, oh, one of the best parts. They hadn't established the hockey mask yet, and I think that they definitely were playing around with what's some striking imagery, and they put the bag on his head, and they have the pitchfork. I think that they got that from the town that dreaded sundown.
Yep.
And I've seen a Scarecrow movie poster that has like
the kind of burlap sack type thing that has a horror trope to it.
But it is a good image to gravitate to. When I was reading the sort of tagline for the movie on HBO, it talks about Jason. It mentions Jason is a mutant, right? So more along the lines of maybe like The Hills Have Eyes or something like that, rather than some sort of undead revenant killer, potentially supernatural in some way. So that really fits like the mutant inbred hillbilly aesthetic that you see in like The Hills Have Eyes.
Right. Yeah.
Let's see. The car not starting, I thought, was really good. That has become such a trope in horror movies that you're trying to run away from the killer. You get into the car. Of course, the car doesn't start. Why would a car start if someone's chasing you? But I never realized how much due diligence they put in to that Volkswagen not starting. Like, she comes up and it's a piece of crap. They have to constantly.
She's late to arrive.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's a super worn out trope where everyone's like, of course the car is not going to start for no reason.
Right.
But they did their due diligence in showing us that this car ain't going to start, lady.
Right. Yeah.
I really enjoyed seeing that. And then I think that there is some really editing. There are some really interesting editing choices and pacing choices in this movie. I loved when the dog is going out and comes up to what we believe is Jason, and then it cuts to the hot dogs frying on the grill. We're like, yep, that dog's a goner.
Right.
And then they put in the what turns out to be just some random torn up animal later. I just really liked the dog arc, the muffin arc, the true hero of Friday the 13th Part 2,
right?
The true final girl. But they did some interesting things with the protagonists. They had like multiple protagonist intros. So we start with the guy and gal, the two teenagers getting their truck towed, and then we move into
comic relief.
The comic relief. Then we
Ted.
have Jenny. Like we just get like 3 different intros of like, okay, who are we going to be following?
But it flows.
Yeah, it never feels weird. I think by the time Jenny comes in, we're like, okay, this is our protagonist. This is our final girl. But it doesn't feel clunky at all.
No.
And let's see. Last good that I have, there's something I never really caught on before, that Jenny is a child psychologist, and that in the bar, she really sympathizes with Jason, that he's just this kid, or has the mind of a child and sees his mother killed. And she's also a child psychologist. So that is her weapon.
That's her Act 3 weapon. It's brilliant. Yeah.
And man, due diligence.
Yeah. It's set up really well.
And again, I don't know if that carries out throughout the other films as well. But I think that they did a really good job with it in this one. What do you have for good?
Everything you've said. The music is amazing. The exploding credits that they had from part one, it's just fun.
Yes, man, we need more of that.
Uh, Crazy Ralph. Love me some Crazy Ralph. Loved him in the first one. Love him in this.
You're all
Um,
doomed.
you talked about the editing. I'm going to talk about the directing. I thought there was some really great shots, some really cool ideas, lots of shots of legs and feet, and it's done in a way that like lets you not quite know what's going. Like it opens with the kid walking in the gutter, and it feels very childlike and also very disturbing. But then it's repeated with Jason,
Oh,
so you don't know it's him or not, and then you don't know if it's a cop or if it's Jason or that time when it's Crazy Ralph. There's
man.
lots of times when they use that as a metaphor. That's really cool.
I
When
got,
they
I got,
throw
sorry,
the
I got to butt in. I got to butt in
yeah,
really quick because you just put two and two together for me. I went back and watched that intro again just because I thought it was so interesting. The kid splashing through the puddle, and then Jason, what we turns out to be Jason splashing through the puddle. When I watched it, I got like a real It vibe.
yep,
You know, like, oh,
very very much
Georgie's
it
gonna
vibe.
get it, but why they did it is because he's a kid splashing through puddles.
He's a kid
It
splashing through puddles. Yeah,
reinforcing that theme of mind of a child. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
100%.
just put it together for me.
Yeah, really smart directing, and just some cool ideas like when she throws the towel at the camera, like almost breaking the fourth wall when she's
Mhm.
going to get the knife to cut her boyfriend down before
Mhm.
Jason kills him. Just cool little things like that. You talked about the Jaws motif in the lake, but you also have the kind of that's
Mhm.
going on at the same time. So it's kind of like marrying two really iconic themes. Of course, the Friday the 13th hadn't been that iconic yet, but it's just a cool little nod. Lots of fun things like that. Um, the skeleton crew twist. We've talked about this with horror movies a lot,
Yeah.
right? How to get everyone out. Hey, last night on the town, we're going to the bar. Who's going? Who's staying? And then like, no, you two snuck off. You have to stay. And then it's the teenagers who want to hook up. Who in the slasher film, that's akin to signing your death wish, right?
Mhm.
So the people who have sinned are the ones who are having to choosing to or being forced to stay behind, and then of course the two leaders come back to help.
Mhm.
But it's a really smart twist on that, getting everyone out away, so it's a small group of kills.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is it's the pure structure of a slasher film coming together. Like slashers were still fairly new at this time. The beats hadn't been established. They were
Mhm.
close. But like we have basically three parts to your slasher. You have the setup, you have the kill off, and then you have the final girl fight.
Yeah.
And it's really that's really what this film is. It's very pure in its intentions and structure, but also and some might think this is a bad, but I think it's kind of good, is that it wasn't set in stone yet. So like Ted, the comic relief, he decides to keep getting drunk in the bar and he lives. He
Yeah.
never goes back. He never gets killed.
Which,
Like
man, I
usually
thought he was a goner for sure. Like
because that
he deserves
right?
to have an arrow through his head, like a joke, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
why
that's the
I
rules
thought
of a
that would happen.
slasher film
Yeah.
now, but those rules weren't written in stone yet. So you have him like living, and it's interesting. Are the end, like you don't know what happens to Paul or the dog, right? Do they live? Do they die? So there's lots of unanswered questions and like loose ends that would have been shorn up 10 years later in a slasher film
Mhm.
like Scream or something, but the bones are there and you can see it like replicated in all these slashers to follow. And I think it's really cool to see that
It's got
model.
good bones.
It's got good bones. And that's my good. We could go on, but the
Okay.
rest is kind of in schlock. What
Well,
do you
so
got for
yeah,
bad?
moving on to bad. So you actually reminded me of a bad that I had, but the first one I want to mention is poor Ralph. Good old Ralph, just trying to help all these kids. He gets ganked He's
Yeah.
gone. We don't get to see him anymore in any of the movies.
When do you? Well, there's a voiceover in I think part 4 of him, but yeah, he's gone.
Yeah.
Um, when do you
there's
see
a
a
theory.
harbinger get killed?
I don't know.
Yeah, I
Do any
mean,
of you know? If you
yeah,
know, put it
whoever's
in the chat,
watching, if
please.
you know, like what horror movies where the harbinger gets killed, because I think
I,
it's pretty rare.
I think it happens. I think it's maybe 50-50. Because they're a
I can't
good
think of many, but I'm
they're
sure
a
there
good
are.
easy kill to do on screen before you let it loose on all the characters that would like get suspicious and start fighting back, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah, that makes sense.
I have like a vague image of like an old woman harbinger and like getting killed, but yeah, I just want to see more of him. I know that there's like a fan theory out there that he is actually Jason's father, and that's why maybe the gene pool is not so great. But the other bad that I had, and this really isn't a bad, much like the Ralph thing. It's just the like you said, the skeleton crew twist. It's a sequel, right? And sequels are supposed to like promise a bigger body count according to the rules of Scream, which were established well after slasher movies had been the rules had been
Their
established.
heyday, arguably, yeah.
So they show us more campers. They show us that there's going to be a bigger body count, but then all of the cannon fodder goes away. Now I can't remember if they return in the next one or not, because I'm pretty sure the next one takes place immediately after, which we'll get into. But I was just kind of expecting when I first saw them, I'm like, wow, Jason's going to really mow through all these people. But then they like get it down. I think maybe technically it has a bigger body count than the first one,
but not very many. Yeah,
not like what they tease you with.
correct.
So yeah, that's all I have for bad. Like I said, very short list. I really enjoy this movie. I had a blast watching it. So why don't we move into Schlock, and I'll give you the floor.
I got a couple bad.
Oh, okay. Rewind that and let's do the bad.
Okay. There might be too many shots of feet. I love the shots of feet.
What is this, Quentin Tarantino?
Right. Yeah. A lot of the kills use the wrong side of the machete.
Hey man,
like it's flipped
the other side of a
they
machete could kill you.
I'm sure it can, but it just felt odd. And maybe it's because he's a child and doesn't know how to use it. So those are my minor ones. I have one major big bad, and that's previously on Friday the 13th.
Well, and I wanted to talk about that in Schlock.
Okay, then we'll pause that because that's my big bad. There's a lot I like there. There's a lot I don't like. So yeah, let's move into Schlock, man.
Well, yeah, into the Schlock. Let's talk about that previously on Friday the 13th. I thought it was interesting that we kind of get a Silent Night, Deadly Night intro.
It's total Silent Night, Deadly Night 2, where you get most of the movie replayed. You see the whole climax. You see what leads up to it.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving away a little too much of the previous film.
Why do you think that?
Well,
like, do we need the establishment that he is a child, that his mother was killed, right? We need all of that.
Yeah, and you can establish all that, and I'm not saying don't show any of it, but it went on for so long. Like, it's a chunk of the movie. If you take that out and just do the movie proper, it's like maybe an hour and 10 minutes. It's like 18 minutes before we get to the credits.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the people who have seen the first one, going to the second one, they don't need the recap. For the people who haven't seen it and are just going to a slasher, it's a horror movie. It's a slasher. You don't need to show every single thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could have bullet pointed it a little more and cut out half of that intro and still had a really effective intro, because I like that cold open kill. It reminds me of the beginning of Scream, only the victim was the final girl from the first movie, which is something I really dig.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it just went on too long.
So have you seen the reboot that came out in 2013? I think uh, they like they basically combine like the first three movies all together, and they do the first movie within like the first minute of of the reboot. They have the girl getting chased by the mom. She whacks her head off, and then you see like this. I think like a little
I
kid. You don't see his face. He like picks up her head, and then
right,
you got everything you
right.
need.
Everything you
um,
need. I like the slow burn of like she's gonna get attacked, but you don't know when, and it's the tracking shots. I love all that. It just went on a little too long for me.
yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting what's going on there because a lot is established that we don't get any answers to. Like I think it's it's 2 months in the timeline. It's 2 months after the events of the first Friday the 13th.
It's 5 years.
That the intro is 2 months, and then once we get into the story proper,
Okay,
after the long intro, then it's 5 years.
gotcha,
Um,
gotcha.
so yeah, it's 2 months. She's like kind of secluded herself. This is Alice. She's
Hmm.
secluded herself. She's like not talking to her parents, and we get these we get these shots of her artwork. She's working on some art. Was she an artist in the last one?
I don't
Not
remember.
that I remember, but it looks like she's working through something. And but I don't know if any of those images. I don't know if they like really mean anything to the
It would have been
movie.
cool if they would have tied in somehow.
Yeah, like if they would have been pictures of Jason, but they're just more general pictures of or drawings of like a monstery looking thing.
Hmm.
Um, so Alice definitely working through something. I wish we would have gotten more of that. But yeah, the timeline. I think it's really interesting that it's called part two. I feel like usually when movies use the part verbiage for their movies, like it generally means like a not it's a sequel, but it's something that like takes place directly after the events.
You're thinking of
Uh,
like Halloween 2, like where it like picks up
yeah,
right. Yeah,
like it's almost like Act Two, right? Like
right. Yeah.
this should be a 3 or 5 act movie or something. And so I think
Yep.
it's interesting that it's 2 months later, which more or less fits. But then yeah, we get time warped into 5 years later, which this movie came out in 1981, uh, and so but it but the original movie it took place in 1979. So part two is like taking place in the future of when they were actually filming, and I think it's
Yeah.
hilarious because they look so 70s.
Yeah. It feels like a 70s movie for sure. Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I
I never
forget.
thought about that, but yeah, 5 years later, but it looks the same. Like there's no, yeah,
Like I forget that the 80s you can like divide up, and this is probably any decade, but you could divide it up between like there's the 70s side of the 80s, and then there's like the weird neon side, the
hmm
90s side of the
the
80s.
pre 90s, the
Yeah,
post
yeah,
70s, and the pre 90s. Yeah.
yeah, that's what the 80s was, and that's why it rocked. Um, but yeah, the time is really interesting because so we jump ahead 5 years, but then so I gotta admit I went and watched the beginning of part three right
Hmm.
after I watched part two because I had some questions, um, and it takes place. Part three takes place the day after, and then
Okay.
I know for sure that part four, uh, if it doesn't take place immediately after, it's very very close because part three ends I think with him getting an axe to the head or something, and they take him to a morgue, and then part four opens with him getting put on slab at the morgue, and then he escapes from them. He comes back alive.
Man, I can't wait till we review part 4. That's when I start loving this series.
Right. Well, like I think 1, 2, 3. I think those are like that's like a certain era of Jason, right? And then we get what 4, 5, 6, and that's like the Tommy Jarvis era, and then we get New Blood and Manhattan, where they're just like trying,
just throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks. Yeah.
yeah.
I think my favorite era is the Tommy Jarvis era, the 4, 5, and 6.
So
but, they're all good.
Another
you
thing he has
go
in
ahead.
common with Taylor Swift, the eras.
The eras.
Can you tell I live with a teenage girl?
Oh, yep. I thought you lived with me as much as you were talking about T Swift. But no. You had brought up, and I want to go back to it, the bar scene, because I think that's the pivotal scene. I think that's the quintessential scene in this whole film.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's such an interesting Act 3 weapon. She finds, when you pair it up with, she gets to the shack, she finds the severed head of the mother surrounded by candles. She puts on the mother's sweater. She starts kind of getting into character. She blocks the head from Jason, and she starts using what she knows against him, and it's working. And it would have totally worked had, she not moved out of just a little bit and he saw his mom's severed head. But until then, it's so smart, because like the comic relief and her boyfriend are making fun of her.
Yeah.
Right. And it's in the middle of this loud cowboy bar, and it feels very authentic. And she's just almost musing to herself, like, gosh, that has to be really hard.
She's sympathizing with him.
She's sympathizing, and she's starting to empathize. And like he doesn't even know that killing's bad. Like she's going into the morality of it. Like if he never went to school, if the only human contact he had was with his mother, and then he witnessed her killed, then of course it's going to be all messed up. And it's really interesting because it stays on her. And then it comes back, and it's probably one of the smartest moments in any slasher I've ever seen.
To sympathize with the killer like that.
Yeah, to sympathize with the killer, and just to use a non-traditional weapon.
Yeah.
And then of course she marries it perfectly with the machete, right? Like she's luring him in and then attacking. Yeah.
Do we get a lot of the mother psychology in the other movies? Do you remember that? Like where
I think a little bit, but I don't remember. I remember like seeing them all growing up, and then like a decade ago I binge watched them
right
a couple times. But yeah, it's been a long time since I've revisited these films.
Well, Corey Feldman, Tommy Jarvis, he does something similar by dressing up like Jason to
That's right.
him,
yep.
Which in some way like potentially makes him like Jason in future films. So yeah, talking about how he grew up, how Jason grew up. So I'm going to throw out a fan theory here, my theory. In our last episode with part 1, we talked about how we think Jason actually is the main killer in part 1, because there's like a brief shot where you see like a male hand in a flannel shirt, which in this movie everyone like is wearing these flannel shirts, and how sort of streamlined the kills are. And then once Mrs. Voorhees gets onto the scene, she's very erratic and not particularly strong. So
yeah, she doesn't have the cold calculation of having killed tons of people.
Exactly. So there are kind of fan theories, ponderings of, what exactly is Jason? Is he a zombie? Is he like kind of a Frankenstein thing? Why does he keep coming back? We get some answers in Jason Goes to Hell, where they have the Necronomicon from Evil Dead and essentially the Kandarian dagger. So people have guessed that maybe he's some kind of deadite. He's possessed by some sort of deadite demon. But I watched a thing that suggests that he's maybe like his own type of thing, so, like some sort of revenant, perhaps coming to kill people. So what I want to throw out here is that. So I think that his mother was killing people because they talked about in the first one that there were like forest fires and water getting poisoned, and I think that the kills at the beginning of the first one where the counselors get knifed, I do think that is Mrs. Voorhees because they like recognize her and talk to her.
Right, right.
But I think what I think happened, I think she got a hold of the Necronomicon. I think she used it to resurrect her drowned son. But he's in the perpetual state of a child, and in order to grow, he must take lives. So it's kind of like Michael Myers in Halloween Kills, right? Where like
yeah, he had to get his power. Yeah,
because I think that Alice's vision at the end of the first one, where the Jason as a boy jumps out and grabs her, I think that purely was like a dream, and he actually was growing all of this time as they like sporadically killed people, but they didn't kill people a whole lot. And that's why in this movie, in part 2, when we see Jason, he doesn't know the extent of his powers yet, that he's basically invulnerable. He is the smallest we'll ever see Jason. In every subsequent movie, he gets bigger and taller and like more body mass, right?
Because of all the killing.
Yeah, that is my theory. So he is a resurrected entity with the mind of a child. Some sort of evil psychological thing is going on there that can potentially be passed to people. Well, eventually we do see that it is a demon that comes out of him, but I think that that's like his own soured spirit in some way. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I think he's got to kill to get bigger. That's how he grows.
Yeah. Okay. I also have a slightly different theory. When he busts through the window at the end and it freezes on him, I realized that he is most likely Chunk from the Goonies.
Okay.
And that Goonies is an offshoot of the Friday the 13th. And Jason Voorhees actually lives happily ever after with Chunk. He's not Chunk, he's Sloth, sorry. He's Sloth from the Goonies and lives happily ever after with Chunk. And all the subsequent movies are just copycat killers and other deadites.
Oh, potentially.
Yeah, but I think he's Sloth from the Goonies.
That could happen. Yeah. But yeah, this is the you brought up that when he busts through the window and we finally get to see his face, like we never see Jason like this ever again. He's got a beard.
He's got the hockey mask. He's got
long
the beard.
Hair. This is just a totally unique take on the character that we will never see again.
Is it a dream sequence, kind of like in part 1 with Alice? Is this Ginny's dream sequence?
So that's why I went and started watching the beginning of the next one, because there's the big question: what happened to Paul?
What happened to Paul, and what happened to the dog?
And what happened to the dog? Did they run away? What
happened to Jason? How did she survive?
Why did she survive?
Yeah, he jumps through the window and is grabbing her, and we cut to her living. Gotcha. Going into a hospital bed.
Yeah. So when the third one begins, it has like some extended footage with Jason on the floor with the machete in his collarbone, and he like gets up and wanders off. And then later in the intro of part 3, we see like the news footage of Jenny getting hauled off. And so what I think happened, I don't think that this is a dream sequence. I think we didn't get to see the true ending of part 2. I think that he busts through the window. I think that there's a struggle where Paul gets killed, Muffins gets killed or run away, and his body is potentially never found.
Right. They only talk. They found 8 bodies, and Paul would have been the 9th body.
Right, but
So,
I mean, there's theoretically bodies all over. He may be dumped in the lake. He may, we just didn't get to see all of that.
It's true. It's true.
And the only reason I say that, though, I'm certain Paul is dead, just because he doesn't show up in any other movies.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the movie where people who shouldn't live. I mean, look at Ted.
Yeah, it's true. But I can't piece it together as a dream sequence in my head for this one.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless you can, unless you got different ideas.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it feels dreamlike in the fact that the dog shows back up. That's just a silly movie thing, and I love it. Busting through the window and then freezing on it also it harkens back to when he jumps out of the water, and then it's that same moment from the first film, and then you cut to the cops or the ambulance driver or the whatever taking the person in. So I don't know. I don't think it's a dream sequence, but it was definitely homaging the dream sequence from part 1. So that makes you wonder.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. What else do I have here? We got the weird awkward scene where she's hiding under the bed, where Jenny's hiding under the bed, and the rats come out. Does she pee her pants, or is a rat peeing on her?
I think she pees herself, and that would have been great if that was how he found her, but it doesn't affect the story at all, because later she crawls out and then he sees her.
Yeah.
I'm like, what a great moment in a slasher film where you're like, you're being quiet, but then something happens and like you can't help yourself, and then like that trickle of urine comes over and hits his boot or something and tips him off to where you are. Like, it was a cool idea, and I felt that was wasted.
Yeah. Lance is saying that the dream sequences don't work. They make things confusing, for sure.
Right? Even a small little one. Yeah, you're right, buddy. The other thing, back to another bad that popped from my head that I think is silly. You were talking about the car not starting, and I thought that was really great. And then he stabs the pitchfork in, which is so freaky and so cool. Mm-hmm. And she like recoils against the side of the door, right? And instead of like keep stabbing the pitchfork in, he reaches his hand in to try and get her. Like, just like, man, that is so silly.
Hey,
like,
man,
keep stabbing, bro. Keep stabbing.
He's a kid. Kids don't know better.
I mean, that is a valid excuse. Like, the same with the backwards machete and recoiling from the chainsaw, and you
just don't know. Kids don't know.
He's learning how to be a slasher guy. He's not there yet. He doesn't even have the hockey mask till part 3.
So I think that's probably all the time we have. That's
I don't have anything else.
I'm excited to see how these movies progress. We still have a lot of the giallo roots in this movie with all the feet shots. I think once he gets his mask, I think a lot of that starts to go away because we want to see the mask, man.
Right.
But it'll always be a staple of the movies to have the weird, creepy looking shot.
Evidently, the shot you have up back here
of the head,
it was supposed to open up, the eyes open up and smile at the end, and I wish they would have kept that.
Yeah, I always wait for it. I'm like, come on. Well, anyway, next week, as I said, we have a very special guest, Lance, the obscure movie guy. He is going to come onto the show and talk with us about my favorite Halloween movie, Ernest Scared Stupid. This one's a banger. If you haven't seen it, you gotta go check that out and make sure you join us.
Schlock,
I am Daniel Lewis Wilson.
Schlock,
Anonymous.
Schlock,
Music
Schlock,
held by
Schlockity,
Schlock.
Schlock,
And we will see
Schlock,
you
Schlock, 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 Schlock,
Schlock,
Schlock, Schlock, Schlock, Schlocky, Schlock, Schlock, Schlock. I am compelled by Schlock, compelled by Schlock, impelled by Schlock. Wait, no.